Example 4. Determine the volume and surface area of the following sphere. So we have a sphere here. It's essentially like a ball. We define a sphere by saying all of these outside points, anything on the outside, is the same distance from the center. So it's not flattened and squished like this. It is the same all the way around. And this example in particular says that the distance from the outside or the side of the sphere and the center is 2.2 centimeters. So I'm going to start off by finding the volume using my formula for the volume of a sphere, which is that volume is equal to 4 over 3 pi r cubed. This is cubed this time. And I know from what I'm given that my radius is 2.2 centimeters. So I'm going to replace the radius with 2.2 centimeters. 2.2 cubed. Another way of writing the volume of a sphere is I can think of this fraction 4 over 3. If I put it into a calculator, I get a long decimal. So I want to keep it as a fraction for as long as I can to get a more accurate answer to avoid rounding. So I can think of this as 4 is in the numerator. So that's what all of these terms are being multiplied, all these values are being multiplied by. And 3 is in the denominator. You can also write it like that. So I'll write the alternative formula up here. So some of you might just want to start off with writing it like that, or you might write it later on in the steps. I'm going to calculate 2.2 cubed using my calculator. So you can either use the button to the power of 3, so 2.2 to the power of 3, or 2.2 times 2.2 times 2.2, but that's kind of tedious, so that's why I prefer, and that's why we looked at using the button earlier in the semester, so hopefully you remember where that button is on your calculator. On some calculators, it'll look like this. Others, it'll look like this, or like this. It'll vary. On mine, it looks like this, so it'll vary. Okay, but usually the symbol, and we looked at that when you were submitting assignments on D2L, that very first one, also so long ago, we use this button on the keyboard to represent to the power of. Okay, so I have 4 pi times 10.648 divided by 3. I'm going to multiply the numerator and the denominator separately. So 4 times pi times 10.648 gives me 133.8 divided by 3. And 133.8 divided by 3 gives me 44.6 centimeters cubed because it's volume. Next, I'm going to find the surface area, which is a little bit simpler in this shape. I'm just going to do it down here. So surface area is equal to 4 pi r squared. And surface area is, it's a little bit harder to visualize on a sphere, but it's this outside part. How much it would take to cover the outside of the ball, not the inside. Volume, when I was finding volume, that's the amount of space inside. Volume is on the outside. So I'm going to replace my known values. I know that my radius is 2.2, so I'm going to substitute that. 4 pi times 2.2 squared. BEDMAS says exponents come next, so I have to enter 2.2 squared on my calculator. And I get 4.89. Sorry, 4.84. And I'm going to put this all in one step in my calculator. So 4 times pi times 4.84. Oh, I'm not sure what I pressed correctly. 4. If you ever get an error, that just means you typed something in wrong. 4 times pi times 4.84 and I get 60.8. And around to 1 decimal. It doesn't really specify, so I'm just going to choose to do 1 decimal place. And my unit is centimeters squared.